Hello everybody, I'm Charlie from Dr. Wen, and welcome along to a brand new Doctor Who YouTube video. As promised, I am back with another video, and today I'm going to be ranking all episode 13s of New Who. So that is the revival era of Doctor Who since 2005. So far there have been 12 series, however only the first 7 series actually had 13 episodes, so this is going to be a relatively short video only ranking the second parts of the finales from series 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7, so this won't include any 12th or 13th Doctor's episodes, because they never had any episode 13s. So, feel free to subscribe to the channel and like this video if you enjoy my content, and put your rankings of these 7 episodes in the description below. I'd really like to hear your opinions on this. And without further ado, let's get into this video. Hope you enjoy. So, in 7th place is one that you were probably expecting, The Wedding of River Song. However, lots of people give this like a 2 or a 3 out of 10, you know, anywhere up to really a 7 or an 8. I give this an exact 9 out of 10, 9.0 out of 10. I don't really think it deserves the hate it gets. I mean, yes, it is a 50-minute way of explaining that he was in the Tesselector when he was being killed. However, that doesn't make it a bad story. I still think it's very good. I quite like the story it's trying to tell of having this, you know, pocket universe where time doesn't really exist, and everything's frozen at this one precise second. I think that was actually pretty cool, and I did like this kind of alternate universe where Amy and Rory were completely different and were still with the Doctor, and there was the silence in those pods in that pyramid. I thought it was actually really interesting, and it gave us some cool ideas, like kind of merging everything within the 11th Doctor's era into one big episode, and I actually quite enjoyed it. It does feel a little bit weird, and yes, it is a 45 minutes of saying he was in the Tesselector, but it still, you know, is pretty good conclusion to this huge arc we've got going on with the Impossible Astronaut, River Song, the Silence, we've got Madame Kovarian, all of that. It kind of sums it all up really nicely and sets up, you know, a fresh slate for the show at the end, which is what I really like. I think it works incredibly well, and yes, it really doesn't deserve the hate it gets at all. In 6th place we have Series 4's finale, Journey's End, part 2 of the 2-part finale, The Stolen Earth and Journey's End. I've given this a 9.1 out of 10. I actually prefer The Stolen Earth to Journey's End. This one, it's very good. I mean, it's the closest thing Doctor Who has ever got to Avengers Endgame, which, I guess they kind of did it first, with all the companions uniting together. It's a really good way to kind of, you know, tie together these 3 shows, Doctor Who, Torchwood, and the Sarah Jane Adventures. I think it's really good, and that whole scene where everyone is in the TARDIS controlling it, that was just brilliant. I really liked, Meta-Crisis Donna and, you know, the Meta-Crisis Doctor. I did like all that, and it finally, you know, it gives us this conclusion to the cliffhanger we had at the end of The Stolen Earth, where the Doctor regenerates, and that was just a brilliant cliffhanger. I really, really enjoyed it. But it does feel a little bit weird. We have those scenes with Martha and the Osterhagen key. I didn't really like that subplot, and it was just to fill out the time, and it does feel a little bit packed with characters that they all seem to be fighting for screen time. I don't think Martha should have been in this, or, forgive me for saying this, Jack and the Torchwood people. I think those shouldn't have really been in this. I think it just should have been the 2 Doctors, Donna, Rose, Jackie and Mickey, and Sarah Jane. I think that would have worked a lot better. However, this was still a brilliant story, and just a really good Dalek story as well. The Daleks are brilliant in this. Davros, we have Dalek Sec. They're all really good, and it's just a very nice way to kind of conclude this Russell T Davies era, even though we do have the specials afterwards. In 5th place we have another David Tennant finale, Doomsday, from Series 1. This is his very first finale as the 10th Doctor, and I've got to admit, it wasn't as good upon a rewatch. I originally gave this a 9.6 out of 10, which I really disagree with now. I give it a 9.2 as well, because it's just it's a tiny bit weird. It doesn't really feel like Doctor Who, and it was a tiny bit of a letdown upon a rewatch because it wasn't as good as I first remembered. I originally really liked the 10th Doctor and Rose, and now I really don't like the 10th Doctor with Rose, or Rose with the 10th Doctor in fact, and I wasn't really that sad to see Rose leave, even though when I first watched it I was really sad. I don't really know why. However, the whole concept and, you know, just the general idea of it, the story it's trying to tell, is actually pretty brilliant. The Daleks emerging from from that kind of Dalek prison within the void. We have the Cybermen, you know, from Ghosts, and they're going to war. All those scenes where the Daleks and Cybermen are fighting are just awesome. We'd never got that before in Classic Who or in New Who before, so it's pretty awesome to see that. It is one of the most popular Doctor Who stories, and I can certainly see why. It's really good, and I like how it includes Torchwood. Even though Jack Harkness isn't in it, it's still quite good to, you know, have nods to these spin-offs, which is what I really like. And yeah, that scene at the end was still pretty sad, especially given that I don't really care for Rose, but I didn't find it as sad as when I first watched it. Next up, we have The Big Bang from Series 5. Lots of people will probably put this in first place for episode 13's. I actually disagree quite a bit. I still think it's brilliant, by the way, don't get me wrong. I've given it a 9.2 out of 10, just like Doomsday. And mainly because it's quite complicated. With all the time travel at the start, I think it's very timey-wimey, and it's quite fun, you know, to see all of that, but it does get quite confusing, especially towards the start, where Amy is in the Pandorica and we have Rory as a Roman. It doesn't really make that much sense, even though it does by the end. You've got to kind of watch the entire thing to understand it, which is why it's not very friendly for kind of casual viewers who don't really see it. You know, only the hardcore fans who, you know, kind of are following this whole plot point of the cracks in the time and space will kind of understand it. However, I am, you know, a hardcore fan. I'm not a casual viewer, so I did understand it, and it was really good. This was also the first time the 11th Doctor wore a fez, and that's a pretty monumental occasion in the show, especially given that the 11th Doctor is known for fezzes, bow ties, and fish fingers and custard. But in general, though, it's really good, and it just gives a lot of character development for Rory as well, kind of, you know, showing how much he cares for Amy by guarding her in the Pandorica for, like, 1,900 years or something. That was brilliant, and everything about the story is just really neat, and I just really like it. However, yes, it is a little bit complicated. Next up, we have the Series 3 finale. This was part 3 of a 3-part finale, Last of the Time Lords. This is brilliant. This was the first ever story we got to see the Master in Utopia and the Sound of Drums, and this was an epic conclusion to this over 2-hour-long finale. It's just brilliant. Lots of people kind of don't really like this because the Doctor is all like shriveled up and he looks a bit like Dobby from Harry Potter. I don't really think it's that bad. I think it kind of shows that you know, how evil the Master is, and especially since this was one of the first few times that casual viewers of New Who even saw the Master, and the first time I saw the Master, and it just kind of showed me how evil he actually was, and that even he could be smarter and stronger than the Doctor at times. I really liked Martha. This gave her a ton of development, especially when she left. That was actually more sad than Rose's departure, which is a pretty unpopular opinion. And yes, it's just kind of a really good concept, her travelling the world, avoiding all these Toclophane. It's just really good, and just a pretty epic conclusion to all of this. However, the conclusion, you know, the actual ending of this, I don't really like it that much. It's kind of, you know, just hitting a big reset button and going back in time. I think that was just Russell T Davies, just kind of, you know, not knowing where to do next. He kind of wrote himself into a corner at the end. However, I still really like it, and yeah, it's just really, really good. In second place, we have The Parting of the Ways, the second part of a 2-part finale of Series 1. This episode is the only regeneration story in this, unless you count Journey's End, where the 9th Doctor regenerated into the 10th Doctor, and this is pretty brilliant. I've given it a 9.4 out of 10, and it's just so good. It's the second time we see the Daleks in New Who after the episode Dalek, which was episode 6, and we have all of these kind of Dalek ships that have escaped the Time War, and it's just so good, all of it. So we have this Linda Moss, who would actually make a brilliant companion. We have the whole sad scene where Rose, the better version of Rose by the way, is kind of sent back to Earth. I actually thought that was where she was going to leave. Rose is actually really good in this as well, having like absorbed the time vortex and, you know, kind of passing it on to the Doctor with that. I don't really like romance between the Doctor and companion, so I didn't really like that whole scene, but it does actually provide a bit of setup for the Doctor's regeneration, and honestly, I wasn't expecting a regeneration. I'd heard that Doctor stayed on for more than, you know, a few years, like the 10th Doctor stayed on for 4 or 5 years, even though it was only 3 series. So I expected the Ninth Doctor to stay on much longer, but that regeneration was a huge surprise to me, and this was the first time I ever saw a regeneration. And in general, it's just such a good story, all of it. It seems to go so quickly, it's that good, and it's just brilliant. But there's one better than it. The Series 7 finale, the last episode 13 of New Who, The Name of the Doctor. There is nothing wrong with this at all. It's so brilliant. I've given it a 9.5 out of 10, and it's just awesome. It provides a final conclusion to the Impossible Girl, having Clara jump into the Doctor's time stream and be split across loads of times and places across the Doctor's life and all his regenerations, kind of saving him from everything. And we have that whole scene at the end where all the Doctors are walking past both of them in the timeline. We have that epic sort of teaser for Day of the Doctor with the War Doctor first appearing. That was brilliant as well. I did really like the Whisper Men and the Great Intelligence. They're brilliant villains as well. First introduced in the Snowmen, the mid-series kind of Christmas special with Clara. I actually really enjoyed all those villains. They were really good, and in general this is just such a good episode. There is nothing wrong with it. It provides loads of setup for the two specials, the Day of the Doctor and the Time of the Doctor, which is really good. And in general, I just really enjoyed it. All of it is absolutely brilliant. So I hope you've enjoyed this ranking video, everybody, and like I said, feel free to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy my content. Also feel free to like this video and comment down in the comments below to put your ranking of the 7 episodes and stories, your personal opinion of it. So, next time. So tomorrow I'm doing chapter 4 of story 1 of a 12 story long fan series, where I will do chapter 4 of Count Your Shadows, where we will finally find out what will happen to Susan Foreman and Ian Chesterton. See you then, and goodbye.